episode of Badass Engineers. I am Shrukalata, your host and an electronics engineering consultant. And of course, Badass Engineers is always powered by RS Grassroots Education, powering tech, empowering youth. And today, I have an incredible person. I have Sassy Science, who is a drag queen, a scientist, a science communicator, just a general genius, creative person. Hi, Sassy.
Hi. Oh, I'm so happy to be here. I'm very excited. Thank you for
I'm
having
so
me.
happy you're here too, because we've been trying to get you for a year now, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Glad
Ah,
you can grace us with your presence.
of course.
So, for people who don't know you, who are you? Introduce yourself.
Okay, so I'm the Hannah Montana of science communication. On the one hand, I am Maribela Fernandez, uh, bisexual, non-binary, neurodivergent researcher doing her research in the Université de Lille here in France. I can get a little deeper into that a little later. And on the other hand, I am a drag queen science communicator because I thought, why not join two of my biggest passions and do science and drag colliding?
That's so cool. Also, like you're doing some super brainy academic electron micro. Do say it, say it, say it. I
Yes,
don't know
yes,
how to
yes,
say
yes,
it.
yes, yes. So, first time should talk to me about this for the people at home. First time you talked to me about this, I was like, wait a minute, I'm not an engineer. I'm like, I'm a fraud. And then I was thinking about it. I was like, well, technically, what I do is very much an engineering job. So you have electron microscopes, which are very similar to a light microscope. Instead, we use electrons that are accelerated instead of lights. That's the general picture. And instead of using
Right.
lenses, we use like electromagnets.
Wait, you don't use lenses in the microscope?
No, we instead of using a lens like a glass lens, we use an electromagnet that works the same way but with electrons. Like the way light would be passing through a lens and like making rays that converge and all that. It's the same process, but instead of using light, we're using electrons. So we need something that is capable of like moving and kind of changing the position and the trajectory of electrons. And
Wow.
magnetic fields are great for that. So
Wow.
yes,
That
and
is crazy cool.
basically now we're like the new generation of electron microscopes where we can do amazing things with them. But the bad part of this is there's so much data to analyze.
Wait, so
um,
do you have to be like a data scientist on top of all that?
that's
No.
where that's what I'm trying to become. That's what I started
Right.
pursuing for my postdoc here. Is electron microscopy is so data driven nowadays because you can even have like detectors that give you like, so I got one electron that came here at this time, and one image might be like, I don't know, a billion electrons.
Right.
So the amount of data you have to go through to get something that makes sense and that you can like draw conclusions from, it's immense. So that's why I'm saying like nowadays what I'm doing is very close to data science, and therefore I'm kind of doing engineering work.
Mhm, mhm. So
And oh, sorry.
no, 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 no. You were saying, continue because I
A
have
drag
so
queen
many
that loves to talk
questions.
about herself. What a novelty.
Okay, you are
Um,
here to talk about yourself, okay? So
so
go talk about yourself.
to glow just the slightest bit because I'm very excited that I started doing my job here at Lille in Lille because the lab that does electron microscopy here, one of them at least, the one I'm in, is the extraterrestrial materials lab. So I not only got to learn how to do great data science, but I am actually studying um, asteroids,
Oh my goodness.
which is something I didn't know I could do, but it's amazing and I love
Wow.
it.
How many jobs is that? I love it. Can I just ask about the electron microscopy thing because
Yes.
literally like my mind is blown and I want to
Okay.
understand more. So there like do you like fire electrons at stuff and then have a magnetic field and have like something that reads? That?
So basically, you have the basic components of any microscope, which is a source, some kind of optical ah, medium that
Yeah.
like transmutes the beam of what you're using, and then a
Okay.
detector that lets you do an image, right? So the source is an electron source. It's something that you have creating electrons that are accelerated with a voltage.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have your lenses, which are your electromagnets that basically create an electron beam that you can move and that you can play with, sort of.
Yeah.
You make it go through your sample. Basically, yeah, you then collect the remaining electrons that have gone through your sample with a detector. The advantage of this is that for physical properties that might take a little longer to discuss,
Yeah.
the more energy whatever you're doing your image with has, in this case electrons, the smaller things you can see. So in our case, we can get to seeing things pretty much at the atomic level, with the
Wow.
bad constraint that we can also burn our sample really fast because you have
Oh
like a
my
ton of electron going through it. And I'm specializing in that in what's called sensitive samples, which are samples that are burned by the electrons way too fast. So you're gonna have to get as much information as you can with as little electrons as possible,
Right.
which makes the data analysis harder, obviously, because you have less to go with.
Oh my God, this is incredible. My mind is completely blown. Now we're gonna have another session on this alone. I'm sure. So, Sassy, I think you know how the program works. I have some mystery questions in a bag,
Ooh.
except I have misplaced my bag, so we're using an analog discovery kit box instead.
Loving that. Loving that.
Amazing
Resourceful.
instruments. I love it. One of my favorite instruments. I just it's so tiny and it can do so much. And you can take it anywhere. Like hands up if you're a remote electronics engineer like me. Lifesaver. Okay, so are you ready for some mystery questions from Analog
I
Discovery?
I am. I'm ready. Ready.
Okay, Analog Discovery is going to ask. Du-du-du-du-du-du. Okay, we've got the first question. Let's put
Question.
that here. It says, okay, do you think your drag helps the science community? And has it been welcomed by the science community? Du- du- du.
we're starting we're starting with the big questions.
Ooh, we're starting with fire.
So as with everything, I would say it's a mixed. It's what I'm getting 5 years into doing this is mixed feelings. There are people who
Yeah.
love it and who have been super supportive and who have been the best. I have been very welcome in spaces that I didn't think I would be welcome. But yeah, no, there are parts of the science community that are still very much white cis straight male driven.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I call it the Santa Claus complex, which is the more you look like Santa Claus, the more privilege you have in science. You have
Yeah.
to be like, you know, a certain type of person that maybe we don't necessarily fit
Mhm,
for
mhm,
many reasons.
mhm.
And drag makes that all the more visible, and it's very celebratory and apologetic. So there are people who take it as a sort of attack.
Really?
Um,
An
oh yeah.
attack?
Not that they say they feel attacked, but they will always either dismiss it, think it's a
Mhm.
parody, or say it's not serious. And it's like, of course it's not serious. It's drag. It shouldn't be serious. But that's the thing. Science doesn't have to be serious. Science
Mhm,
communication doesn't have to be serious. We have to be rigorous, which means we follow what science is saying
mhm.
and we try to communicate it in the most exact way possible with respect to the facts that are given. That doesn't have to be serious. I can do that like this. And it's definitely not serious. Like, I've never been a serious person.
But also, I mean, science can be done fabulously, and you do it the most fabulously, okay?
Thank you. I very much appreciate that.
Oh, I totally what I love about this podcast is how honest I feel maybe guests are or we are or the space that we have here just allows people to be honest about the science community, about the engineering community, and they're communities that we love a lot. That's why when things are not good we want to fix it and we want to talk about it and we want to call it out. So thank you for your honesty.
Of course, it comes from a place of love. I think everyone has the right and the time maybe to change, and I hope for changes within the STEM community in general.
Hmm.
But for that, we have to call things out. I'm like,
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, are you ready for analog discovery to ask you more
ooh.
questions?
Well, the first one was loaded, so let's see what comes.
Okay, I'm gonna call her Mrs. Analog Discovery because she is a badass. Okay, let's
Hmm.
see what this question says. Oh no, don't fall. Okay, you can stay here. Okay, this one says, "Ooh, I love this question. What can science learn from the drag community?"
Mm, love that, love that, love that. So many things, both in a mindset kind of way and in a political way.
Mhm.
Um, well, the first one that it's more obvious is that well, diversity is key, and I
Yeah,
mean, drag is something that was born from people who are literally at the margins of society,
yeah,
and obviously that we still carry that with us, and it's part of who we are and what we do. And I think science can learn a lot from that, from everything we can give as people who necessarily are not in the norm in several ways.
yeah.
Um, resourcefulness. Can we talk about drag and resourcefulness and how? I mean,
Oh my god.
I can say with my hand in my heart that drag has made me a better scientist because the way drag performers think, because anything can go wrong in a
Mhm,
drag
mhm.
performance. You know
Oh,
that.
oh yeah, oh yeah. For those of you who don't know, I'm a very proud drag king at night sometimes.
Uh, it's everything can go wrong. You have to think on your feet. You have to see the bigger picture of what you're doing, and at the same time be very present in what you're doing. I think science can learn a lot from that.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and also the lack of stiffness. I'm sorry, but to me, and this is more of an opinion than information, science is a very fluid thing. Nothing
Mhm.
is set in stone. There is nothing more scientifically accurate than changing something that was wrong,
Yeah.
which is sometimes is not understood that way. Sometimes people think when something is written in a paper, it has to be true because someone said it. It's like, well, there are many, many things that paper said that were not true. Some of
Mhm.
them for political reasons, some of them for social reasons. It's still happening today.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And we keep on correcting these things, which is, why science is great. And I'm sure we're doing even more mistakes today, and we'll be correcting them in another 10 years' time.
Of course, and it's just normal to make mistakes in everything, but especially in science. What I like from drag is that it teaches you not to take those mistakes too seriously.
Yeah, I love it.
Just
I love it so much.
I
Amazing.
I'm getting emotional here.
No. Well, let's see what Mrs. Analog Discovery has to say about this. Okay. What more questions do you have for us? Let's see. Okay, this one says, how do you feel about being a science communicator? So I know that we've touched a little bit about that, but how did you get into it?
Um, funny story. I never thought of myself as a science communicator until I
Really?
started doing science communication. Yeah, I was never. I'm not the classic story of I was doing science communication when I was 15. I was never. I don't know. Never, maybe not into that because I was an avid consumer of science communication, but I never thought
Mm,
of doing it myself. Then I started my PhD, and my PhD project, Enabling Excellence, had this thing where it's very common in European projects when it's like, we're going to teach you how to communicate, and then you're going to do something to prove you learned how to communicate.
Okay.
So we all had like compulsory formation in communication, but then we had what was called a grand challenge, which
Okay.
was basically everyone had to pick either one communication project or one business project and try to fulfill it to completion. Completion, I'm air quoting because, well, there's no completion in a psychom project. You just go and do it and keep on doing it. And at the time, I started to do drag more or less at the same time this happened, and I was like, ah, this would be a nice way to like join passions and see how it goes. And it's very
How
much
long
the
ago
same.
was that?
This was 2017. I'm old.
You're not. That's not old, but wow, I thought so. So it was like way before lockdown because obviously lockdown
Yeah,
was a horrible time for everybody, but it was also a time where I felt a lot of people found their true passions.
absolutely.
So which is actually how Badass Engineers came about. It was a lockdown project. So I thought your science com was a lockdown project too, but you've been doing it for a while. That's amazing.
Actually, it was kind of the opposite. During lockdown, I had very little time because I defended my thesis in 2020, in September
Oh,
2020. So when lockdown started, I was just trying not to lose it, basically.
oh my
So I did a
goodness.
lot less drag that year than most people. Most people were like, "Yeah, this is where I found my drag," and where I was like putting on makeup at home. I was like, "Well, I was writing. I didn't really get that."
Oh, I love it. I love it. So I did a master's. I didn't do a PhD. And it was it was so hard. I can't imagine having enough strength to then go on and do a PhD. It's a really big achievement.
Thank you. At the time, I didn't think of it like that, but looking back, yes, it really it was tough. It was tough.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, I can't imagine it. I can't imagine it. Hats off to you. Wigs off
Thank
to you.
you.
Ooh, I think Miss
So,
Analog Discovery has more questions for you. Ooh, what were you saying?
oh yeah, no, I was just gonna go with the a very specific part of the science communication thing is that even though there was a lot of people that loved it, because at the time we were not a lot of queens doing science communication, we still aren't.
Yeah,
I mean, we're
we
we're
still
tight knit.
aren't. Yeah. Do you know
Um,
everybody?
Pretty much. Like, I mean, if I haven't heard of
That's
them,
so
it's
bad.
it's it's complicated. If I haven't heard of them, I don't. It's weird.
I feel the same about the drag king community, not so much about the drag queen community, but like I feel like I know every drag king in the UK and maybe even in parts of Europe.
Well, then again, the UK is kind of like the house of the kings in Europe, at least.
Yeah, how did that come about? Apparently, Bristol is the
Yeah, yeah,
biggest
yeah, yeah,
drag king hub in like Europe.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Well, so for organized communities, they get things done.
Come to Bristol, boys! The drag king night in
Hmm.
Bristol.
And yeah, well, when I meant, it's true that when I said queens, it's people who do drag, because it's not just queens doing drag that do science communication, and that should be an important part of this as well. Because
I
when I uh,
I can't, even though I'm a drag king, I can't think of any drag kings who do science com off the top of my head. Actually, that's terrible. Do you know
I
any?
yes, but I don't remember his name because I'm terrible at
Oh,
names. But if you give me 5 minutes after this to
yeah. And
search him
also
up,
people
yes.
watching, if you know
Well,
who these
I
people
mean,
are, tell us in
I
the
know
comments.
like incoming kings doing science communication. I don't know. Well, I mean, my drag nephew is starting to do psychom now, so obviously I know him.
Of course.
Obviously, yeah. But Eric Trocito, but I think he's gonna focus more on projects in Spanish. Although I don't know.
Which is
Things
true.
like this. They change forms along the way. Like I started doing YouTube, and then I realized I was way happier doing live performances. and
Yeah.
I do a lot less YouTube now.
Mhm.
Also because I think performances are more neurodivergence friendly because you don't really have as much of a constant thing that you have to do every day or every week to
Mhm.
keep creating content. You
It's
know.
content is hard. It's so hard. People underestimate how much work and effort goes into literally a 15-second reel, for example. It is days of work. Days of work.
I mean, I remember doing YouTube. It was because I was doing everything by myself, so it was like doing the research and writing the script and record. Well, getting into drag, which that's work too.
I know.
Um,
It's so much work. And getting
it is
out of
work.
drag takes as much time as getting into drag.
Yes, absolutely. um, there's a little of engineering too. Like you need to like put everything into place, and everything has to like you know
It's all
be where it
engineering,
has to
babe.
be. It is. It is. And sorry, I sidetracked.
It's okay. We both did. We were like, oh, tangent. Let's go, squirrel. Woo.
um, sorry, I got sidetracked. I don't know where we were. For real,
It's
I
okay.
completely forgot. We can go to the. Oh yeah,
When
right.
you
Yes,
remember.
Psycom. I was doing Psycom, and one of the things that I realized is that a lot of Psycom that because Psycom itself is sold as it's for everybody. Like that's the
Yeah.
what where you're when I was at uni and they were talking to me about Psycom. It's like so you basically take your concepts and make them easier for everybody to understand.
Mhm.
And then I got actual communication like formation. Like I actually got taught, and I was like, oh right, this is not true because you cannot do things for everybody. There's always a public that you have in mind, and if
Mhm.
90% of the people that you got doing psychom are of a certain profile that I've already talked in extension, like white cis straight, mm, you know, able-bodied people, well,
Mhm.
men
Mhm.
specifically, men, uh, no,
We lo
not
we love
men.
our male allies. We love you guys, but we
We
want some
love
things for
you.
ourselves.
We love you. But it's you can have too much of something,
Can we have a little
and
bit, please? Can we have a little bit?
let's just. It's just there's a disproportion in
Yeah.
who's doing psychom as well, and not just in terms of like gender, but also other axes of oppression. We are disproportionately unrepresented. So
Mm,
it's
mm.
we're not represented in science. We're not represented in STEM in general. We're not represented in science communication. That just perpetuates the same thing, and and it's the same reaction whenever you do psychom as someone who's outside the norm. Um, for some reason, they think it's a parody or that it's not as respectable.
Right.
I'm gonna tell like a very small thing that I think
Oh,
tells a lot.
that's so awful.
So
Yes, please tell me.
I at the Royal Spanish Society of Physics Congress a few years ago, I did two talks, one as Mario, one as Sassy.
So what?
And
So for everybody who doesn't understand, so one is like
I
cis
was
male
yeah,
presenting.
ish, I'm non-binary and not exactly cis male presenting, but yeah, I have a
Yeah.
beard, I'm bald, so even if I'm wearing makeup and I have my nails and all that, I usually get if someone were to put me either in a man woman category, which a lot of people do, it would be yeah, I get read as a man a lot of the time.
I got you. I got you.
Um, and the other one I did like full on sassy glam.
Hey, like
So
full on in drag.
yes, which is not. I mean, the Royal Society of Physics, with the exception of the women group, which are amazing, lovely. I love them to death.
Mhm.
They were great allies. They protected me the whole day that I was in drag there. But otherwise, it's a very stiff academic, environment. And I remember distinctively PI from my lab. Well, we were grabbing like a lab picture, and the guy just talked to me and said, "Can I touch your boob?"
What? What?
Yes. So it's like,
Wait, what?
yeah, like it was some kind of like parody, some kind of joke, some kind of like, oh yeah, I can touch your boob because you're a drag queen. It's like,
Wait, that like at a science, at an academic talk.
Yes, not at the talk. Like right after the talk, we're taking a picture of all
Yeah,
the group from my
still,
lab.
still at the conference.
Yeah, in a very much yeah,
That
very
no.
academic
Oh
environment.
God.
Yeah, and that was not received as something weird by a lot of the people there.
Oh,
Because you're in drag, you can
everybody
be
thought it's
playful.
fine.
Because bodily autonomy, whenever you're in drag, it's like, who cares, And it's very that. It's what I get from science communication environment is very either they love me and they accept me
Mhm,
and they want me to
mhm,
be a part of it, or
mhm,
suddenly I am not doing what they like because I'm not probably catering to the public they would want me to cater to.
mm. I am so sorry that happened to you, and I'm so sorry you exist in well, I'm so sorry the community that you exist in needs a lot of work.
It does, but it's we're part of it. Like I
Mhm.
think being visible and being open about things does a lot because
Absolutely.
people listening will be probably reflected about this. Hopefully.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure a lot of people listening will find a lot of inspiration in this, and you are my shiro.
Oh.
So we have completely run out of time, but
Oh,
we still have one more question. We can do it
let's
anyway.
go. Let's
We can
go.
do it. What do you think Analog Discovery do? Yes, yes, please read it. Okay, let's do
Honestly,
it.
Anna Log Discovery new drag name.
Ah! I love it. Wait, say it again, say it again.
Like Anna Log Discovery.
Okay, okay, girls, you heard it here. You've got a drag name. You've got a drag name. Okay, cool. Last one. Actually, there's like a resistor in here for some reason.
To remind us where we come from.
Resistance. Okay, last question. Okay, so are you a fan of mixing up roles? Okay, so I want to say something about this because I know you sort of do 3 million jobs in one.
Yes.
And like so do I, but I can't find that role anywhere. I had to create it. I feel like the world doesn't cater for a cocktail career at all.
I couldn't agree more with that. It's funny because for me, it's a somewhat similar experience to what I experienced with like gender, where
Mm.
I'm like, wait, there are two boxes, and I'm like, I'm not. I'm not there. I don't know where I am here, but I'm definitely not there. Uh, but it kind of takes from some things where they want to put you in one or the other. Same thing.
Yeah,
People
yeah,
have an obsession with putting you in boxes.
yeah.
Um, and I'm in a position where I'm not too much of an engineer to be a physicist. I mean, I'm too much of a physicist to be an engineer and vice versa. Like, but hybrid positions are necessary. Like things that have two kind of sets of knowledge colliding sometimes are necessary for projects to advance. I might not be as proficient programming as a software engineer, of course, because
Mhm.
that's not my base formation. I might
Yeah.
not be at the moment as proficient with condensed matter physics
Mhm.
as I used to be. But the mixture of what I do, the data analysis for, uh, I can, someone who knows how to analyze data wouldn't have the insight I have on my samples, and how someone who knows the samples very well wouldn't know how to analyze the data. So things
Mhm.
like this are needed every time in academia and outside. Like we need to be a little less restrictive on putting names, boxes, and ticks to everything. Everything in general, but like applying to you know labor itself,
Yeah. Uh,
we need to you know loosen up a little.
Get a cocktail. It's 5 p.m.
Yeah, like let loose, like Liz Villetta could say.
No, I like absolutely preach. I actually I worked at a company before where they really loved getting people very specialized. So if you're a schematic designer, you only do the schematics. Somebody else does the PCB layout. Somebody else does the component generation. So somebody else's job every day is just to draw components and put them in the system. And To be honest, like I'm like, okay, I don't mind that these jobs exist because some people want to do that every day,
Hmm.
but it shouldn't be the only option. And for most bigger companies, that is the only option.
And kind of in academia too, like even though we're like more precarious and have to do more things on our own, in the end, people want you to be super specialized in one thing.
Yeah.
And even when you're writing grants, people are usually like, "Oh, don't mention that because that's like a little far off from what you're trying to
Hmm.
sell." As your
Hmm.
profile is like, "No, this is my profile." Like, if I could, I would talk about. I mean, I probably will talk about my science communication as well because like it is part of what makes me good for the job.
Yeah.
Why would I
Yeah.
hide it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I've written some bios before for companies who wanted me, as an engineering speaker, but I'm also a performer, and it's all part of the same person, and they'd sort of like censor that bit out. But
Yeah, it's kind of weird because you feel like you have to like you know kind of like cut yourself into pieces and put them in the boxes they want so that they will be okay with it, which is a very weird feeling.
100%. Sassy, I'm so sorry I took much more of your time than
Oh
than
no no
I
no
told you
no.
we were gonna take. I lied.
Yeah, you know things. I said I'm both ADHD and a drag queen, so I'm late usually. So
I'm
time is a
here for it.
construct.
What is time? Who is she? Who is she? I haven't met her.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for your time and your energy and your incredible brain today.
Ooh, thank you for having me.
And thank you, of course, to everybody who listens to our podcast and takes part in the questions. And of course, thank you to our amazing sponsor, RS Grassroots Education, powering tech, empowering youth. Thank you. And I'm so excited to see you all for the next episode of Badass Engineers. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Whoop. Bye, ma salama.
Ah,
We're gonna have to do bye for a long time.
hasta
Bye.
luego.
Woo.